Shalom everyone. Insights in the Parsha of the week, Parshat Devarim, also before Tisha B'Av. But there's an amazing point in this Parsha. There's so many amazing things, of course. There's one thing that Rashi points out from the first chapter of the Parsha, chapter 1, verse 17, where Moshe Rabbeinu says that he appointed judges for the Jewish people, and he's instructing the judges on how to conduct in being a proper and righteous and straightforward, honest judge. Right? So verse 17 reads like this. It starts like this, verse 17. Lo takiru panim b'mishpat. He tells the judges, don't try to have favoritism in the judgment when you are in court. Kakaton kagadol tishma'un. Listen to both equally. Don't give any favor to the big guy and the small guy, because you make the small guy feel like he's insignificant and he won't be able to say the right things. Lo tagur mipnei ish, and you, the judge, don't be afraid of any man. Oh, he's too powerful, I'm scared he might revenge me and anything. Kamishpat lelokimu, because Hashem is the judge. In other words, if you distort the judge because of any of these reasons, the judgment, you force Hashem now to find other ways to execute the proper judgment, and Hashem doesn't want that. Hashem wants that humanity should execute the right judgment. And then Moshe Rabbeinu says like this: "V'hadavar asher yikshem mikem," and any item, any difficulty you may have in giving a psak halacha, in deciding the halachic ruling of any case, and not knowing because it's too deep, too difficult. Takrivun elai ushmativ, bring it before me, and I will listen to it. In other words, I'll listen and I will decide. That's the pshat. Rashi says like this, immediately, on these words, anything which is difficult, bring forth before me. Rashi says, Al davar zeh nistalek mimenu mishpat benot Tzelofchad. On this item that he said, anything that's difficult before you, bring it before me. So he said, because of this, on this item, that's why he lost knowing when it came to the laws of the daughters of Tzelofchad, which was Parshat Pinchas, like we saw in the class we gave 2 weeks ago on Parshat Pinchas. Okay? And then Rashi lists like the Gemara list. This is from the Gemara in Sanhedrin, page 8. And also by Shmuel Navi, that he thought he knew who would be the new anointed king, and he couldn't imagine that it was King David. And Hashem says, you said that you can see, I'm going to show that you can't see. Okay? And fine. So there's a third example brought in the Gemara. Right. Fine. So the Siftei Chachamim, he adds to explain Rashi. The question is, what was wrong with what Moshe Rabbeinu said? Isn't it logical? Didn't he make a logical statement? Whatever is difficult before you, judges, bring it before me. That makes sense. He's telling them, if it's too hard, okay, so I'll try to solve it. So he was punished for saying that, but so what was he supposed to say? So Siftei Chachamim points out something interesting. He says here like this: Mishum shaya medame et atzmo lakadosh baruch hu. By saying what he said right after the words ki hamishpat lelokim hu, because the judgment, the justice of law belongs to God, and then right after that, Moshe Rabbeinu says, and anything which is difficult before you, bring before me. So he points out the Siftei Chachamim. So it's as if Mishum Shaya Medameh Tatzmol HaKadosh Baruch Hu, it's as if Moshe Rabbeinu was equating himself to God by making that statement the way he said it and when he said it. Dichtiv, because like we said, it's written in the right before these words, Ki Mishpat Lelokim Hu, because the justice belongs to Hashem alone. Uchtiv Acharav, and then right after that the verse reads, V'adavar asher yakshim mikem takrivun elayim. Anything which is difficult before you, bring before me, Moshe Rabbeinu. Kivyachol shu atzmo Elokim. Wow, that's very hard to say that. And he says there's Si Rabbeinu Bachye, who also goes into this, okay? And that's why he lost track on knowing the judgment of the laws of the daughters of Tzelofchad, that women can inherit the land when there's no male hire. But the question is, really, it's a big question. Moshe Rabbeinu had to make that statement. You have to tell people that if you don't know the law, so bring it before the people who do know. It makes sense to say that. So why was he punished? Why was he punished? So Rabbi Nachman quotes a book, an old book called Bechinot Olam. And this book, Bechinot Olam, is the root of this famous expression. There's a famous expression that goes, Tachlit hayediyah asher lo neda. The goal of knowing is to not know at all. The goal of knowledge, Tachlit hayediyah, is that one does not know. Crazy. In other words, the more you know, the more you learn, the more you enter Yiddishkeit, the more you realize how much you don't know. It's unbelievable. Because you would think, like a person who has an MD and a professor in medicine and science, and he's a major professor and this, the more they're knowledgeable, the more they know. And in Judaism, it's the exact opposite. The more you know, the more you realize how much you don't know. Tachlit hayediyah shelo neda. And Rav Noson explains in the Likutey Moharan, the goal and the greatness of the tzaddikim, and that's the goal of mankind, is to reach this pinnacle of being able to join these two opposites together. The goal of all knowledge that you've accumulated is to realize how much you don't know. It's knowing and yet not knowing. You know to a certain extent, and you don't know from that extent onwards. You don't know. And because Hashem is endless, His wisdom is endless, His Torah also is endless. So as much as you learn, He's just tapping into more of the endless, of the Ein Sof. So the question is, if that's the case, why should I even learn Torah at all? If now, the more I learn, it just doesn't end, so why kill myself to study? Because the answer is, Rav Noson explains, that the more you learn Torah, the more you're infused of true humility and emunah and simcha in serving Hashem. You realize that everything counts. That anyways, what you're doing, it's not like you deserve it. The greatest tzaddikim, even the Kedushat Levi goes into this beautifully in his explanation, his expounding of the wise men of Athens, the story of the Gemara in the Bechorot, page 8, of the encounter between Rabbi Yeshua ben Chananya and the wise men of Athens. The Kedushat Levi has an amazing explanation on this, and he goes into this idea also, and also Rav Noson and Rabbi Nachman also for sure. And the more you're learned, the more you enhance your emunah and your humility and truth. You're so honest with yourself, you're seeing how much you don't know. And that's the goal of knowledge. That's why we're learning. The reason why we learn Torah is to infuse ourselves with emunah. The goal of my Torah study, Rav Noson writes this in his prayers, and also Rabbi Nachman, is to realize how much I don't know. So what becomes enhanced by my enhancing my Torah study? My emunah. The emunah is enhanced because I'm so much more aware how much is out there and how much I don't know. Okay? So with that in mind, we can now answer, why was Moshe Rabbeinu punished? Because he was so lofty, he should have left it at that. He shouldn't say anything which is difficult, bring before me. So he shouldn't have said that. What should he have said? Nothing. To leave it as it is. The Gemara says, Rashi brings down in the Gemara, in Sanhedrin, also page 8, that he should have said, whatever is difficult, bring before the divine presence. Yeah, but what does it mean, bring you lesser, say, judges lesser than me, bring before the divine presence? Even that requires Moshe Rabbeinu. Moshe Rabbeinu is always the in-betweener between Am Yisrael and the Kadosh Baruch Hu. You know, he's telling the judges, he should have, according to Rashi, told the judges that whatever is difficult before you, bring before the Shekhinah. But how's that going to happen? Their connection to the Shekhinah, divine presence, is through you, Moshe Rabbeinu. Okay? So the question is still in place. What should he have said? What's the proper expression of Moshe Rabbeinu? He should have been made, first and foremost, this presentation, being Moshe Rabbeinu, he should have presented the idea of Tachlit hayediyah asher lo neda. Knowing, the goal of knowing is to not know. And by him saying, whatever is difficult in your eyes, for you guys, bring it before me. He should show the example that it's not before me, because I'm also nothing compared to Hashem's infinite light and endless wisdom and Torah. So his attitude should have been, don't say anything. Let the Jews on their own come before you without you having to say it. Because Moshe Rabbeinu has to be constantly representing Tachlit hayediyah asher lo neda. It's like Rabbi Nachman teaches elsewhere that Moshe stands for Machloket Shammai Hillel. The disagreement in halacha between the house of Shammai and the house of Hillel. Mem, Shin, Hey. Which means it's unsettled. Unsettled. So that's like the unsettlement is synonymous to the goal of knowing is to not know. It's two opposites in one. I'm knowing, yes, he's finished the Shas, he knows all the Kabbalah, all the Zohar and everything, and then he doesn't know. He doesn't know because comparison to what's out there, it's endless. You come with your small question, he can answer. But his representation has to always be Moshe Rabbeinu, Tachlit HaYediyah Asher Lo Neda. The goal of knowing is to not know. That's how he should be. So for him to say, and whatever is difficult before you, so takrivun elai. Now we said also, if you remember in our article in our Torah on Parshat Pinchas, that it's specifically in the area of giving the land to daughters who are ayers, who are inheritors, who inherit land from their father, who didn't leave behind boys, only daughters. So that law was concealed from Moshe Rabbeinu, because the law of Eretz Yisrael and giving oath to a daughter, what the representation of a daughter is, maybe Nachman teaches the daughter, or Noson explains it, sorry, is that a woman represents Eshet Chayil Ateret Ba'ala. The woman of valor is the crown to her husband. There's two famous psukim that we know from the book of Proverbs, Eshet Chayil Mi Mitzah, that we sing Friday night. But there's a second verse, Eshet Chayil Ateret Ba'ala. The woman of valor is the crown to her husband. Rav Noson explains that a woman, on one hand, she's a receiver below her husband. The husband marries a woman, and he's the supplier, and she's the receiver. But on another level, the woman has a higher root than the man. She's rooted in the keter. Keter is the idea of a crown. And the keter connotes the wall separating mankind between Hashem's infinite light. And a woman, believe it or not, is rooted in this lofty level. That's why it's so important. Chazal teach the idea of respecting a wife, and also having her in the picture. Not to say try to be a loner. I don't need a woman. They always make me upside down and upset. Let me do my own thing. No, you need the woman in there because she has antennas connected to this keter. And the keter is what's beyond the man's grasp. She's receiving from that level. She doesn't know necessarily what, but she's receiving from there. So when it came for daughters who are rooted in the keter to inherit the land of Eretz Yisrael, where Rav Noson explains, and also his disciple, Rav Nachman Goldstein of Cheren, in his amazing book, where he connects every lesson in Likutey Moharan to the Holy Land. He explains on his commentary, lesson 24, that the greatness of Eretz Yisrael, that this is the land where a person can perceive through it the infinite light. This is why the Beit HaMikdash was here. The Holy of Holies, the Kodesh Kodashim, which had the Ark, was here in Yerushalayim, which influenced all of Eretz Yisrael, the whole Holy Land, the whole land. It's called the Holy Land because of the Beit HaMikdash and Yerushalayim, etc. That's why it's so holy. So the holiness of the Holy of Holies is that it generates light from the infinite light. That's Eretz Yisrael. That's why it's such a big thing to live in Eretz Yisrael. Even after the temple has been destroyed, the light was so intense that the impression left behind, even after the destruction of the temple, is so strong here still. That's the idea of Eretz Yisrael being so powerful, why it's so important to be here even now, B'ezrat Hashem. So when it came to the law of daughters inheriting the land, Moshe Rabbeinu was punished in that he didn't know the law. Even though something which is so simple, that like the Siftei Chachamim also brings us down, yet it was concealed, it was hidden from Moshe Rabbeinu, specifically this idea of woman inheriting the Holy Land, because the woman is the idea of the Keter, and the Holy Land is the idea of the infinite light, and because Moshe Rabbeinu, in a sense, I mean, God forbid to say he blemished, but like Rashi says, he was punished. He was punished because he said, whatever is difficult before you, bring before me, which shows he's not maintaining the attitude of Tachlit HaYediyah Asher Lo Neda. The goal of knowing is to not know. He wasn't portraying that. He wasn't displaying that. So his punishment was that he lost out on knowing the halacha for daughters to inherit the land. Unbelievable. So this is a point that comes out, and Rav Noson says this applies to every Jew. Every Jew has tests in his life which force him to be knowing and not knowing. On one hand, you get a flow what's happening in life. You know how to run your life. You're happy. You know what to do. You have a schedule. You have a seder. You have a goal. Okay? And then all of a sudden, they pull the rug from under your legs, and you fall, and you're shocked. What happened? How could this happen to me? What happened? It hits you unexpectedly. So here, we're expected to put into play, into power mode, the idea of the goal of knowing is to not know. When these setbacks happen and they throw us off guard and we're totally unexpected in facing these challenges, we have to remember that this is the goal of knowing, not to know. And this is part of the picture, B'ezrat Hashem, And this combination is what allows a person to receive from the infinite light. We should be zoche b'zat Hashem to maintain, to learn from Moshe Rabbeinu on our little levels, to remember this idea that there is the idea of the goal of knowledge is to know how much we do not know. Shabbat Shalom. Have an amazing Shabbat.